You are afraid to surrender because you're afraid of losing your agency. You are addicted to what you want. But it's not what you want, see, it's what you think you need. What you actually want is deeper than the mind's assertion of false control over its imagined reality. What you actually want, true agency, is much more simple and direct. It is the product of surrendering your will to the simplicity and obviousness of life. Surrender is not an action. It's not a thing you realize, an insight. It's not an effort. It's simply not fighting with yourself, allowing the obviousness of reality to move through you, allowing cellular intelligence to begin permeating your actions and your thinking and your self-expression. It sounds very ephemeral, but really it's quite simple. Just ask yourself, how many times are you not allowing life to be what it is because you want something and you'll do anything to get it? You're afraid that if you don't do things to get what you want, then you won't be happy. You won't experience joy and fun and achievement, maybe. But the truth is that the body wants to be happy. The body wants to be well. And so the more that you allow this deeper freedom to guide you, the more that your life begins to organize itself harmoniously. And this organization might not make sense to a culture and a mind that's conditioned to think so linearly about productivity. You might go through periods of hours or days or even weeks where you're not doing much of anything and you're just resting. But then, seemingly out of thin air, you'll be like a magician, creating things and building whole worlds and all of this stuff, and it just feels natural, and it doesn't feel like something that you have to like psych yourself up to do. See, if you're having to psych yourself up to live your life, it clearly means that you're not living on your own terms. Because life isn't something that you ever had to force yourself to live. And if you're forcing yourself to live, even if the way that you live is something that you think is like right or productive, that's not the only way you have to do things. And that's not to say that intuition and surrender is something that effaces the mind altogether. The mind is a very useful tool. Sometimes surrender means structure, it means discipline. Sometimes it means the opposite. The mind is a vehicle for play. It is an amazing way of categorizing experience and creating meaning and definition for self-expression. But when the mind becomes a tyrant and stomps on intuition, trying to express itself through the mind and as the mind, that's when we start to see discord, when things just stop working together. I'm walking through the Boston Common and I see all of these pigeons scattered in a 100 square foot square. And one pigeon starts flying away, and just suddenly every single other pigeon is just moving as one unit in the same direction. That's how, in one sense, nature works. Each individual cell has its own individual expression, but It's part of a broader kaleidoscope. It's meant to work in synchronicity with the rest of the collective. And this is a fractal thing. It organizes itself this way in many different levels. On the level of the body, each individual cell is meant to do its own thing in accordance with the rest of the system. In the level of collective humanity, you know, I honestly feel like we are meant to express ourselves individually, but to do so in a way that flows with the rest of the world. And in a world full of people who are so hell-bent on exerting their personal will onto everybody else, it's like we're surrounded by false kings and tyrants, and by extension, our own conditioned attempt to control life, and by extension, everybody else. And that's how we start to see violence and hatred for others and for ourselves. How we start to see wars over resources and information, because everybody is so caught up in scarcity mindset, in this belief that they need to control experience because they're scared that if they don't control experience, they won't be free. But freedom does not come through control. Control doesn't come through control. Control and freedom, these are the perfume of surrender. They are the inevitable consequence of living a life in harmony with life. How do I surrender? That's not really the question, I think, that's helpful to ask. I mean, it is to an extent, but sorry, I'm sick right now. It's more so a question of like, what is obvious that I'm like not admitting to myself? How am I fighting against myself? How am I exerting my thinking over what is actually real? It's not like you learn surrender and then you like constantly do it. I mean, to an extent, but it's like more like intuition is stubborn and it's clear. And the more that you listen to intuition is the more that it becomes clear. And so if, you know, it's not a question over like what is right and wrong. There is no universal right and wrong. There's no like cosmic parent that's judging you, but it's more like what feels like flowing down a river, you know? What feels natural? Not necessarily what feels like it doesn't take effort. I'm about to do the dishes after this video, and I don't want to do dishes. But, you know, it just is kind of, it just like, I can just feel it. Like, it's just the thing that I'm going to do, you know? And it'll take effort, but it's something that feels like almost like life is kind of like opening that door for me and then kind of giving me the momentum to walk through it. And it's like, if you're constantly fighting your own momentum, then your entire life is going to become this constant like fighting and then having to like indulge to make up for how exhausting fighting is. And if you're caught in this cycle of like fighting and indulgence, then you've fallen into the same trap that almost everybody else has. That's that same trap that all of this algorithmic shit, all of this like hormone-filled food, all of these like recreational drugs, like they're all trying to like keep you in this cycle of indulgence and fighting, indulgence and fighting. And that's not to say that you should avoid those things or that those things are bad or that you can't engage with them in a productive way. I mean, I'm making a fucking YouTube video right now, but Like there's a part of you that just knows. And the more that you try to like pretend that it doesn't exist, or even worse, knowing that it exists, but still choosing to like ignore it, like that's hard. That takes a lot of work. That's very difficult to maintain. It's exhausting. And you don't have to do that. And you won't lose anything by not doing that. You will gain so much joy and abundance and love and true, like honest well-being. Not well-being because you're doing all the right things, although in a way you will be doing all the right things, but well-being because you'll just feel like your life is moving, like you're open, like the world has possibility to it. And that is a magical place to be. So, I was not expecting this video to be so energetic, you might say. Sorry. Delicious. But as someone who thinks a lot and has a lot of ego, as I was posing, I was thinking maybe that should be the thumbnail. Maybe not. It's been really nice lately to actually like start trusting myself. And I think a lot of people, maybe they're so ambitious or have so much trauma or whatever it is that they don't trust themselves. They don't think they'll actually, their life will work if they're not willpowering all the time. But there's been this task I've been putting off for like a couple weeks. And one day I woke up and I literally just did it. And I didn't think about it. It wasn't a thing. I literally just did it. And it was easy. I didn't have to make myself do it. It just happened. And it felt like that was only possible because I was finally allowing myself to relax, letting myself off the hook. And so I guess in a way, I just want to kind of reassure you that in my own way, with my own limited knowledge, you'll be fine.